Welcome, everyone, to an early Friday night, Young at Heart, featuring nursery rhymes, stories, songs, poems, Mother Goose, Aesop's fables, Lewis Carroll, limericks, larks, and such, to keep us all young at heart. And I'm Father James DeLuzio in the Polish Fathers Rectory Library in Manhattan. This is session number 17, and by popular demand, this evening's poem is none other than Edgar Allan Poe's Boo, the Raven. Now, the Raven isn't what we'd normally associate with Young at Heart. However, if we think back, it's often offered to children in grammar school. Why? Partly because of the rhythms of the poem. They're very easy to set to mind and memory. They're quite captivating. And also because kids like a good spooky story. So the rhythm and the spookiness of it appeals to children, even though on another level it's all a lament of grieving for the lost Lenore, a rare and radiant maiden whom the angels named Lenore. And the author of the poem, the speaker, the narrator in the poem, is not able to let go, desperate for a return to be with Lenore in life or in death. There's also themes, of course, of the struggling and longing of the soul for immortality, but it's not a statement for or against it. It's really an expression or an exploration of what happens when we become filled with fear and we feel terror when there is no hope, when there is no afterlife. So I believe that's kind of what it is, and it's sort of couched in a stupor. The narrator talks about a drug. The drug, what is the name of it? Nepenthe or nepenthe. It's an hallucinatory drug. So there's something about a stupor in this poem as well, which adds to its eeriness and creepiness. So I did try to memorize the whole thing for you, but I wasn't able to. But I did memorize some of it and familiarize myself with it, so I don't have to look too often at the book, at least in the first half. And rather than delay and forestall, I thought I'd offer to you where I'm at in my enjoyment of the poem. And if you want to stay around till after it's over, I'm going to try a little comic relief. But it's optional, depending on your time frame. Okay, so here we go. Edgar Allan Poe's. Let's shake that bit. The Raven. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only this, and nothing more." Distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember cast its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow. Vainly I had sought to borrow from my book surcease of sorrow. Sorrow for the lost Lenore, for that rare and radiant maiden whom the angels named Lenore. Nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. That it is, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir, or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is, I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here! I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into the darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the darkness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore." This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this, and nothing more. Back into my chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon I heard again a tapping somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis a wind, and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stepped or stayed he, but with mien of lord and lady perched upon my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, perched and sat there, and nothing more. Then the ebony bird beguiling set my sad fancy into smiling by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance he wore. "Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou," I said, "art sure no craven, ghastly grim, an ancient raven wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with a name as nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing farther than he uttered, not a feather Then he fluttered till I scarcely more than muttered, "Other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before." Then the bird said nevermore. Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, "Doubtless," said I, "what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of never, nevermore." But the raven, still beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned my bosoms to the core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvety lining, that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er she shall press, nevermore. Then methought, as the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer swung by seraphim, whose faint footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor, "Wretch," I cried, "thy God hath lent thee by these angels, he hath sent thee respite, and nepenthe from the memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." "Prophet," said I, "thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether temper sent or whether tempest tossed thee from a shore. Desolate, yet all undaunted on the desert land, enchanted on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." "Prophet," said I, "thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aidenn it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels named Lenore, clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels named Lenore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." By that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked, upstarting, get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken, quit that bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws its shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow lies floating on the floor, shall be lifted nevermore. The Raven. So, memories of childhood. If you did have to memorize this in childhood, you kept the you kept the rhythm going. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping sound, as if someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more. Right? So you may not get into the morbid dynamics of it. There's, again, many different ways of interpreting. I introduced one to you. This one could also be that his soul has died. He's sort of in purgatory, can't get out. He's stuck. His soul is just lingering there because he doesn't have any faith. He has nothing to open him up. He's bought into all the negativity, all the disbelief. So it's a very dreary kind of Sheol-like existence that he has. But I'll tell you, when I was preparing this, I did think of making it a little more comic. This is what I would have tried to do. I don't know how comic it would be, but let's see. I'm already ruining it a bit by telling you what would be somewhat comic. It's my comic attempt. But I would have said it something like this. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad face into smiling by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance he wore. Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art thou no craven? Ghastly, grim, and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore, tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Quote the raven, nevermore. Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, etc., etc. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going tonight to see Fatima the movie in a movie theater. First time. I'll be wearing my mask. I'll be wearing my collar. I invited people in the parish through an e-blast if they wanted to join me, so that the movie that's being shown for only $5 at AMC Movies this week, we can have a discussion of the story of Fatima and our communion with the communion of saints, and what these kind of stories mean to us or don't. So if you have a chance to go to an AMC movie theater near you this week and you've been vaccinated and feel comfortable doing so, they will seat you with seats, not with vacated seats in front of you, alongside you. If you feel comfortable, go to the movie theater, $5. See the movie, see it again if you've seen it before, and join me Thursday on Facebook I'll do a Facebook Live, and we'll have a discussion. If that's not your cup of tea, then just join me for Luke Live Online next Tuesday and Young at Heart again next Friday. Have a great weekend, everybody. Memorize a poem for fun. I might continue working on this for some future time where I can stately recite the poem. God bless everyone. Good night.